You know, I never thought my kitchen would become the stage for the weirdest love triangle in history. And believe me, when I say love triangle, I'm not talking about some romantic drama. No, I'm talking about me, my wife, and a guy with a toolbox who somehow thought painting walls was the shortcut to her heart. And you know what? Maybe it was. Because one day I realized this man spent more time in my kitchen than I did. And guess what? He wasn't there for the tiles. It all started pretty innocently. My wife, Sarah, said, "Honey, we need to remodel the kitchen. It's outdated." Outdated? I thought the kitchen looked fine. I mean, sure, one cabinet door squeaked, and the tiles were as old as my college sneakers, but they still did the job. I could still make my morning toast without feeling like I was living in a museum. But Sarah insisted, "Let's hire someone professional." And that's how I met him. Kevin, the contractor. At first, Kevin seemed like a good guy. Polite. Smiled too much. But hey, I thought maybe he was just friendly. I even offered him a beer on his first day. We chatted about baseball. He complimented my grill skills. Everything seemed fine. But by week 2, I noticed something off. He'd show up early. Not 8 a.m. early, but 6:45, and I already made coffee for your wife early. And Sarah? Oh, she was glowing. I'd come home from work, and she'd be in the kitchen, laughing at something Kevin said. I'd ask, "What's so funny?" And she'd wave me off. "Oh, you wouldn't get it. It's just a contractor joke." Contractor joke. What could be so funny about grout and nails? One evening, I walked into the kitchen and saw Kevin holding a bouquet of daisies. "Oh, these," Sarah said. "He just brought them to brighten up the room while we work on the backsplash." Brighten up the room? I'm not a genius, but last I checked, flowers don't install tiles. That's when I started thinking, this guy is either the friendliest contractor in America or something else is going on. And let me tell you, my gut feeling was screaming. I knew Sarah's kitchen obsession wasn't just about the backsplash anymore. I didn't explode, though. That's not my style. Nope. I smiled. I nodded. And right then, I decided something. I was going to play along. See, most guys, when they suspect something, they blow up. Arguments, drama, the whole 9 yards. But me? I had a better idea. A plan so good that even Netflix would buy the rights. I said to myself, if Sarah wants a shiny kitchen and a shiny Kevin, let's see how far we can push this. So I told Kevin, "Hey, man, I'm really loving the work. How about we expand the project? Not just the kitchen. Let's give the whole house a makeover." His eyes lit up like Christmas morning. He nodded so fast I thought his head would fall off. Sarah clapped like she just won the lottery. And I stood there, smiling, already thinking of the chaos I was about to unleash. Because here's the thing. I wasn't just hiring him for renovations anymore. Oh no, I was hiring him for the ultimate prank. The man thought he was winning my wife's heart. Huh. He had no idea he was about to become my personal clown, working for free, doing the dumbest tasks just to impress her. I'm telling you, the stuff I made him do. If I told you right now, you'd think I lost my mind. But trust me, every absurd project I gave him was part of my revenge master plan. And you have no idea how I got back at her. By the end of this story, you'll either call me a genius or a lunatic. Maybe both. But you'll love every second of it. So buckle up. This is the tale of how I turned my wife's little kitchen fling into the wildest, funniest, and most satisfying revenge project of my life. And it all started with that first suspicious bouquet of daisies. After that first day, when Kevin brought my wife daisies, I started paying attention to every little thing. At first, I told myself I was overthinking. Maybe he was just one of those overly nice people who bring flowers to everyone. But the more I watched, the less innocent it all looked. One morning, I left for work around 8 and saw his truck already parked outside. Fine, maybe he's an early riser, I thought. But when I came home early that afternoon, I didn't hear the sound of drills or tiles being cut. Instead, I heard laughter, Sarah's laughter. The kind she used to give me when we first met. I stepped into the kitchen quietly. And there they were, sitting at the table like it was their private cafe. Kevin had 2 cups of coffee on the table, and Sarah was twirling her hair like a teenager. When she saw me, she almost jumped. "Oh, you're home already," she said, as if she'd been caught doing something wrong. "Just had to grab my laptop." I replied with a smile that felt heavier than a brick. Kevin mumbled, "We were just taking a little break. Construction is hard work, you know?" Yeah, sure. The only thing he was constructing was a way into my wife's heart. From that moment, I started watching them like a hawk. Every night I came home, I'd find them standing too close. Once, I saw Sarah brushing dust off his shoulder, and the way they looked at each other, it wasn't friendly. It wasn't even close. But I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I wanted proof. So, I started showing up at random times, pretending I forgot something. One time, I walked in and they were drinking wine. He was supposed to be installing a cabinet, not hosting a romantic evening. Looks like a serious design meeting, I said, forcing a smile. Sarah laughed nervously. Oh, we're just discussing backsplash options. Sure, I said, looking at the empty cabinet behind them. Backsplash. Got it. That night, I lay in bed next to Sarah, staring at the ceiling. Something in me snapped, but not in the way you'd expect. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to scream. I wanted to play a smarter game. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen while Kevin was setting up. You know, man, you're doing great work, I said casually. I was thinking, maybe we should expand a little. Not just the kitchen. Maybe a few shelves in the hallway, or repaint the dining room. Kevin's eyes lit up like Christmas. Sarah looked at me, surprised but clearly pleased. She probably thought, wow, he's finally taking interest in my dream project. That was the start. I kept feeding Kevin small tasks, little things at first. What if we move that cabinet over there? Or could you build a nice wooden shelf for Sarah's plants? He agreed every time. And Sarah loved it. She'd sit there, sipping tea, watching him work like some kind of hero. And that's when I saw it. The way she looked at him when he wiped sweat off his forehead. That look wasn't for me anymore. I knew. I didn't just suspect. I knew she was cheating. But instead of exploding, I smiled. If she wanted her perfect handyman, I was going to let her have him. In fact, I'd make him work harder than ever. I'd keep giving him project after project until this little romance felt like a full-time job. The real game was about to begin. I had my confirmation. I didn't need words. I didn't need her to admit it. I'd seen enough. The way Sarah touched Kevin's arm when she laughed. The way they shared little smiles like I wasn't even in the room. And that evening when I caught them in the backyard, that was the final straw. I came home earlier than usual, walking through the side gate quietly. They were supposed to be finishing the kitchen cabinets. Instead, I found them sitting close together on the patio bench, a bottle of wine between them, her hand resting casually on his knee. They didn't hear me approach. For a second, I just stood there, watching. That one simple gesture told me everything I needed to know. But instead of storming him like a madman, I smiled. A strange, calm smile. I backed away quietly, walked through the front door as if nothing had happened, and called out, "Hey, I'm home." They both jumped up like guilty kids. Kevin nearly dropped his wine glass, and Sarah's face turned the shade of a ripe tomato. "What's going on?" I asked, pretending not to notice the scene I had just witnessed. "Just taking a break," she said quickly. "Of course. A hard day of sitting," I replied with a grin that probably confused them both. Inside, I was burning, but I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me angry. I decided to let them dig their own graves while I built my revenge one absurd project at a time. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen like a man with a mission. "Kevin," I said cheerfully, "you know, this kitchen is coming along so well. I think we should take it to the next level. I mean, why stop here?" Sarah raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I mean, let's make the house spectacular," I said with the fakest enthusiasm I could muster. "Kevin, you up for a challenge?" "Sure," Kevin said without hesitation, puffing out his chest like some DIY superhero. "Great. First, I was thinking, the front porch needs a dramatic entrance. How about building a big wooden arch? Something that says, 'Welcome to the kingdom.'" Sarah giggled. "That sounds bold." Kevin nodded eagerly. "I can do that. Yeah, that would look amazing." I almost laughed out loud. Hook, line, and sinker. Then came the golden mailbox idea. What if we paint the mailbox gold? "You know, make it stand out," I suggested, trying to keep a straight face. Sarah tilted her head, pretending to consider it. "I guess that would be unique." Kevin jumped in. "I'll pick up the gold paint tomorrow." I started coming up with projects that made no sense, just to see how far he'd go. Laying out a tile labyrinth on the front lawn for an artsy vibe. Building a wooden stand for Buddy's water bowl. Crafting a decorative fence around Sarah's garden, even though she only had 2 sad tomato plants. Every time I suggested something, Kevin said yes. Every single time. The funniest part? He wasn't getting paid for any of it. After the first kitchen job, I stopped mentioning money. Instead, I would say things like, "Man, Sarah loves your work. You're really making her happy." That was enough for him. One weekend, I sat in my lawn chair, beer in hand, watching Kevin dig holes for a garden path that nobody asked for. Sarah hovered nearby, handing him lemonade, looking at him like he was some kind of knight in shining armor. I wanted to roll on the grass laughing. "Looks good, Kev," I called out. "You're a natural at this." He grinned, sweat dripping down his forehead. "Thanks, man. Just want to make sure Sarah's happy." And there it was. He wasn't even pretending this was about me anymore. He was doing it all for her. And she loved every second of it. But here's the thing. I wasn't jealous anymore. Not really. I was entertained. It was like watching a bad reality show unfold right in my backyard. Every ridiculous project I came up with was another episode, and Kevin was the star. I started making a list of what I'd call Phase 2 of my plan. Bigger projects. Crazier tasks. I wanted to see how far Kevin's love for Sarah would push him. And I wanted her to see just how ridiculous her handyman hero could look when he was doing things that no sane contractor would ever agree to. The pink roof idea came to me while I was drinking my morning coffee. I looked at our plain, gray roof and thought, would he actually do it? Would he paint an entire roof pink just because she batted her eyelashes? I smiled. Oh, I was going to find out. The pink roof was my masterpiece of madness. I don't even know where the idea came from. Maybe I was just sitting there, sipping my morning coffee and thought, what's the most ridiculous thing Kevin would actually agree to do? Then it hit me, a pink roof. Who in their right mind would paint a roof pink? Exactly, no one. That's why I had to see if Kevin would. That morning, I strolled out to the backyard where Kevin was hammering something for no apparent reason. Sarah was there too, leaning against the fence, smiling at him like he was building the Taj Mahal instead of a pointless garden arch. "Kevin," I said, with my most serious tone, "I've been thinking, this house needs personality. Real personality. I think the roof should be pink." He stopped mid-hammer. "Pink? Yeah. Bright, cheerful, bubblegum pink. Imagine how unique it would look. Our house would stand out for miles. People will say, 'Wow, who lives there? Must be someone with real style.'" Sarah laughed like it was the funniest thing she'd ever heard. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm dead serious," I said, grinning. "Kevin, what do you think? Can you make it happen?" To my surprise, Kevin nodded. "I mean, yeah, I could do that. I'd need some ladders and a lot of paint, but sure." Sarah blinked at him. "Are you really going to do it?" He gave her that smirk, the one that made me want to throw a hammer at his head. "Anything for you." For the house, I mean." And just like that, I had him. The next day, Kevin showed up with buckets of the ugliest pink paint I'd ever seen. It looked like melted cotton candy. I almost felt bad, almost. I watched him climb onto the roof, brush in hand, while I sat in the shade with a cold drink. "Careful up there, buddy," I shouted. "We want even coats, nice and smooth." Sarah rolled her eyes. "Do we really need a pink roof?" "Of course we do," I replied, pretending to be completely invested in this project. "I want our home to shine, Sarah. Kevin's the man for the job." Kevin, bless his lovesick heart, painted all day. By sunset, he was covered head to toe in pink splotches, his hair sticking up like he'd been through a war. He climbed down, wiping sweat from his forehead, and Sarah handed him a towel. I swear, the way she looked at him, like he was some kind of romantic hero after battling dragons, made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. "Wow," I said, feigning amazement. "It's perfect. What do you think, Sarah?" She hesitated. "It's definitely unique." "Unique?" "It's a masterpiece." I clapped Kevin on the back. "Couldn't have done it without you, man." Inside, I was laughing so hard I could barely breathe. This guy was painting my house for free just because he thought he was winning my wife's heart. Meanwhile, I was turning him into a living punchline. But the pink roof wasn't the end. Oh no, I was just getting started. I moved on to phase 2 of my absurd projects. A mural of a giant sunflower on the side of the garage. A hand-built wooden swing that no one asked for, placed in the middle of the yard where it didn't even fit. A custom sign that read Sarah's Palace above the front door, carved and painted by Kevin himself. Each time I gave him a task, Sarah would protest for about 2 seconds, then look at Kevin, and he'd shrug like, "Anything you want." I could almost see the gears turning in her head. This guy is doing all of this for me. The funny thing? Kevin was starting to crack. He wasn't as quick with his cheerful, "Sure, I can do that," responses anymore. I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. Painting an entire roof under the blazing sun had clearly taken a toll, but he still wouldn't say no. Not with Sarah watching. One evening, I caught him sitting on the steps, completely drained, paint still on his arms. I walked over and handed him a beer. "You've been working hard, Kev. I appreciate it." He gave me a tired smile. "Just want Sarah to be happy." "Oh, buddy, if only you knew." Sarah, meanwhile, didn't even seem to notice how far gone this guy was. She loved all the attention, all the projects, all the energy he poured into our house. She was glowing like she'd won some kind of secret lottery. But me? I was already planning my next move. Kevin had no idea that every ridiculous thing he did wasn't just home improvement. It was setting the stage for my ultimate revenge. By the time the pink roof dried, Kevin was looking like a man who'd gone through both a war and a breakup. His hands were covered in calluses, his clothes permanently stained with paint, and his smile was starting to fade. I could see it. The poor guy was reaching his limit. But I wasn't done with him. Oh no, I was just getting warmed up. That week, I decided to turn my revenge into pure comedy. If Kevin was going to humiliate himself for Sarah's attention, I was going to make sure he did it in the most ridiculous way possible. It all started with Buddy, our golden retriever. Buddy is a simple, happy dog who only needs food, a few belly rubs, and the occasional ball throw to feel like a king. But one day, I noticed something strange. Kevin was jealous of my dog. I caught him muttering under his breath when Sarah was cuddling Buddy. "You love that dog more than anything, don't you?" he said to her with this weird grin. Sarah laughed. "Buddy is family." Kevin's smile twitched. "Yeah, family." That gave me an idea. A terrible, hilarious idea. The next morning, I looked at Kevin with a straight face and said, "You know what Buddy needs? A proper throne. A custom-built wooden bed, something fit for royalty. Maybe with his name carved into it." Sarah giggled. "That's adorable." Kevin hesitated for half a second, clearly thinking, what am I doing with my life? But then he saw Sarah's excited face and said, "Yeah, I can build that." And he did. Oh, he really did. He spent 3 days sanding, carving, and painting a tiny wooden throne for my dog. Buddy, of course, had no clue what was going on. He just jumped on the new bed and chewed one of the carved edges. I thought I'd die laughing. To top it off, I decided Buddy's royal corner needed some extra style. "Kevin, how about a painted mural of Buddy on the garage wall? You know, like a king with a crown?" Sarah's eyes lit up. "That's actually cute." Kevin sighed, but once again he nodded. "I'll do it." Now picture this. Kevin, covered in paint, trying to draw my dog wearing a crown, while Buddy sat next to him licking his paws. Every time Sarah walked by, Kevin puffed up like he was Michelangelo creating the Sistine Chapel. Meanwhile, I was sitting on the porch, pretending to be thoughtful. "You know, Kev, this mural might make Buddy jealous of you. You're stealing all the attention." Kevin chuckled nervously. "As long as Sarah likes it, I don't care." "Oh, Buddy, you're already losing." By the end of the week, the yard looked like a mix between a dog palace and a circus. We had Buddy's throne, a mural of him in a crown, and a little wooden fence that Kevin built around the dog's play area, because Sarah thought it would be cute. But here's the best part. I started noticing Kevin's frustration showing. He wasn't just tired, he was jealous. One evening, while I was scratching Buddy's head, Kevin said, "Man, this dog gets more hugs than I do." I raised an eyebrow. "Well, Buddy's been here longer than you, pal." Sarah laughed, but I could see Kevin wasn't amused. And that's when I realized I had him exactly where I wanted him. He was exhausted, jealous, and still hopelessly trying to impress Sarah. And I wasn't done yet. The next project? I had something outrageous in mind. If Kevin thought a dog mural was tough, wait until he heard about my dream backyard project, something that would keep him sweating for weeks. By this point, I had turned Kevin into a one-man circus act, and Sarah didn't even seem to realize how ridiculous everything was. In fact, she was starting to enjoy having her very own personal handyman, who would do anything just to make her smile. And when I say anything, I mean anything. One Saturday morning, I overheard Sarah say to him, "Kevin, do you think you could fix that old garden bench? I'd love to sit out here with my coffee." Kevin, of course, said yes before she even finished her sentence. The guy was like Pavlov's dog. Sarah smiles. He grabs his toolbox. But I wasn't going to let her be the only one giving him tasks. Oh no, I wanted to take this game to the next level. I wanted something big, something that would keep him sweating for days, maybe even weeks. That's when I came up with Project Paradise. The next time I caught them standing too close in the backyard, I clapped my hands and said, "All right, team, I've got the perfect idea for the backyard. A full makeover, gazebo, koi pond, maybe even a little waterfall. What do you think?" Sarah's eyes lit up like I'd just promised her a trip to Paris. That would be amazing. Kevin, wiping sweat from his forehead, hesitated for a moment, but then, of course, nodded. "Yeah, I can do that. I'll need some supplies, but I can start this week." "Fantastic," I said, patting him on the shoulder. "I trust you, Kev. You're the man for the job." He smiled, but I could see the panic in his eyes. A koi pond? A waterfall? This wasn't home renovation. This was me turning his crush into manual labor hell. Over the next few days, my backyard turned into a construction zone straight out of a reality TV show. Kevin was digging holes, hauling stones, and building a makeshift gazebo while I sat in my lawn chair with a beer, giving him creative directions. "Kev, that pond needs to be at least 2 feet deeper. We don't want the koi feeling cramped. Kev, maybe make that gazebo roof curved. Sarah likes curves, right?" He'd grit his teeth, nod, and keep working. It was beautiful. Sarah, meanwhile, acted like the queen of the castle. She'd sit outside with a glass of lemonade, giving Kevin little suggestions, while I secretly enjoyed every second of the madness. One evening, after he'd spent the entire day digging and mixing cement, Kevin slumped on the steps, looking like he'd aged 10 years. Sarah thanked him with a sweet smile that was probably worth all the effort, for him, anyway. I sat down next to him and said, "Kev, you're really going above and beyond here. You're not just building a backyard, you're building a legacy." He gave me this weak smile. "Just want Sarah to have her dream backyard." Oh, Kevin, you poor, lovesick fool. As the days went by, the backyard paradise grew more absurd. I added more requests. A wooden footbridge over the koi pond, even though there were no koi yet. A stone fire pit for romantic evenings, which he built with his bare hands. String lights everywhere, like we were opening a wedding venue. Every night, I watched him leave covered in dirt, sweat, and frustration. And every morning, he came back, because Sarah batted her eyelashes and said, "Kevin, you're the best." By now, I wasn't even angry at Sarah. I just thought, wow, you're really letting this guy dig his own grave, aren't you? She didn't even realize that while Kevin was building her dream backyard, I was building my perfect revenge. The backyard now looked like something out of a bizarre theme park. We had a koi pond without koi, a crooked wooden bridge that Kevin had spent 2 days building, and a gazebo that looked like it belonged in a budget wedding venue. And yet, Sarah was loving it. She'd walk outside every evening, her eyes glowing, and say things like, "Kevin, you're so talented. I could never have imagined this." I'd just smile and nod, hiding the fact that every single part of this chaos was my idea. But Kevin, he was breaking. I could see it in his face. His hands shook from exhaustion, and every time I suggested a new improvement, he'd stare at me for a few seconds, like he was silently questioning all his life choices, before muttering, "Yeah, I can do that." So, I pushed him further. One afternoon, as he was cementing stones around the pond, I came out with my most ridiculous idea yet. "Kevin, I've been thinking, what if we build a miniature lighthouse next to the pond? You know, to give it a coastal vibe?" He froze mid-cement. "A lighthouse?" "Yeah, imagine it. Sarah could sip tea by the pond, watching the sunset, with a little lighthouse glowing next to her. Romantic, right?" Sarah clapped her hands. "Oh my gosh, that sounds adorable." Kevin, dead-eyed but still desperate for her approval, nodded. "Sure, a lighthouse. I can build that." I nearly burst out laughing. The next 3 days were pure comedy. Kevin was out there cutting wood and hammering nails, building a 4-foot lighthouse like his life depended on it. At one point, I caught him arguing with himself while painting the stripes. He was sweating, grunting, and muttering, "What am I even doing?" Meanwhile, Sarah played the role of supportive muse, bringing him lemonade and patting his shoulder. "You're amazing, Kevin," she'd say, completely oblivious to how ridiculous the entire backyard was becoming. On the 4th day, I unveiled my next demand. "Kevin, buddy, That gazebo needs a swing. You know, like a romantic bench swing. He stared at me, his hands trembling. A swing. Yeah. Sarah loves swings, don't you, honey? Sarah nodded enthusiastically. I do. Kevin closed his eyes, sighed, and said, I'll do it. By now, I wasn't even pretending to hide my amusement. Every time he hauled another piece of wood, I thought, man, you're not just working on my house, you're working on my revenge. But then something unexpected happened. Kevin started snapping, not at me, but at Sarah. One evening, after finishing the lighthouse, he muttered to her, I don't get it. I do all of this, and you barely even, notice me. Sarah froze, clearly uncomfortable. Kevin, what are you talking about? Of course I notice. He threw down his hammer. I feel like I'm just your handyman. Not more than that. I was watching from the porch, sipping my beer, trying not to burst out laughing. Oh, this was perfect. The guy was exhausted, jealous, and now frustrated with the very woman he was trying to impress. That night, I added the final touch to my master plan. While they were arguing softly near the pond, I walked over, smiling. Kevin, I've been thinking after this, maybe we should do a total driveway makeover. A mosaic pattern. Big project. He blinked, his face pale. A mosaic driveway? Yeah, man. I mean, look at all the amazing stuff you've done. This would be the crown jewel. Sarah smiled, clueless to my true motives. I think that would be beautiful. Kevin sighed. Yeah, sure. I can do that. Inside, I was already planning my grand finale. Kevin had no idea that the crown jewel of my revenge wasn't a driveway mosaic. It was something far, far bigger. By the time the mosaic driveway was half finished, Kevin looked like a man on the verge of collapse. His hands were raw, his back bent like an old man's, and I swear I saw him mumbling to himself while laying tiles. Every day he came over, he looked less like a confident contractor and more like someone trapped in his own personal nightmare. And honestly, I was loving every second of it. Sarah, of course, still thought she had her dream handyman at her beck and call. But even she was starting to notice the cracks. One evening, as Kevin struggled to lift a heavy bucket of cement, she said, maybe we're asking too much of him? I smiled and said, nonsense. Kevin's a professional. He loves this kind of thing, don't you, Kev? Kevin forced a grin. Yeah, love it. I knew this was my moment. The final act. I needed a plan so perfect that Sarah would see what a fool she'd been without me ever raising my voice or pointing fingers. I wanted her to open her eyes on her own, and Kevin was going to help me do it. So I invited a few neighbors over. You all have to see the backyard, I said with a big grin. Kevin's outdone himself. When they arrived, the look on their faces was priceless. The pink roof, the mural of Buddy the dog wearing a crown, the crooked bridge, the random lighthouse. It was like a chaotic art installation designed by someone who'd lost a bet. Wow, one neighbor whispered to another. Is this supposed to look like this? Sarah's face turned bright red. She hadn't realized how insane everything looked until that moment, when the neighbors couldn't stop snickering. I made sure to turn the spotlight on Kevin. Come on, Kev, tell them about your masterpiece. How you built the throne for Buddy and the pink roof. Kevin, exhausted and embarrassed, muttered, yeah, just wanted to make everyone happy. That's when I struck the final blow. I stood up, clapped Kevin on the back, and said, you know, Kev, I can't thank you enough for all this work. And Sarah, she really seems to enjoy your company. I looked at Sarah and smiled. But you know what's funny? I haven't paid him a dime for any of this. He's been doing it all for free. The neighbor's eyes widened. Sarah's jaw dropped. Kevin looked like he wanted to melt into the ground. One of the neighbors chuckled. Wait, all this? For free? Why would you do that? Kevin stammered. I just wanted to, but couldn't finish. He looked at Sarah, hoping for some sort of validation, but all she did was stare at the absurd pink roof like she'd just woken up from a weird dream. It was beautiful. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a butter knife. I leaned back, sipping my drink, enjoying the silence. For once, Sarah didn't have that smug little smile on her face. Kevin muttered something about needing to grab more supplies and practically ran to his truck. That night, Sarah finally broke. What have we done to the house? She asked, looking around like she'd just realized we were living in a clown's version of paradise. I shrugged. We? Oh no, Sarah. This was all you and Kevin. Your vision, remember? She didn't say anything, just sat there, staring at the mess, probably thinking about how ridiculous she'd been. And I didn't have to yell or accuse. I'd already won. I went to bed that night with the widest grin I'd had in months. The plan had worked. Kevin was gone, Sarah was speechless, and my revenge renovation was complete. The day after the neighborhood showcase, Kevin didn't come back. His truck was gone, his tools were gone, and with them went all of Sarah's giddy excitement. She spent the whole morning pacing the house, staring at the pink roof and the lighthouse by the Coyless Pond. The reality of our dream home had hit her like a brick. Around noon, she finally turned to me and said, I think I made a mistake. I raised an eyebrow. Which part? The pink roof? The dog mural? Or inviting a lovesick handyman into our marriage? She winced, but didn't argue. There was nothing left for her to say. The look on her face said it all. She realized how foolish she'd been. And me? I felt free. For months I'd been carrying the weight of her betrayal on my shoulders, but now I felt lighter. Because while she had been flirting in the backyard, I had been quietly planning my future. That night, I told her I was done. Not with shouting, not with tears. Just a calm, steady voice. Sarah, I hope you enjoy your pink roof. I'm moving on. You and Kevin can have whatever's left here. I'm starting fresh. She stared at me, shocked. You're just leaving? I smiled. I'm not leaving. I'm choosing a better life. There's a difference. And I did. I sold the house, pink roof and all. The new buyers thought the quirky backyard was artistic, their words, not mine, and I didn't bother explaining the whole circus that built it. I took the money and moved into a small but beautiful apartment downtown. Clean, simple, no lighthouses or dog murals. I started going to the gym again. I reconnected with old friends I hadn't seen in years. I even adopted another dog. Buddy needed a friend, after all. And for the first time in a long while, I felt happy. Sarah tried calling a few times, but I didn't answer. What could she say? Sorry, I almost left you for a guy who painted your roof pink. No thanks. Sometimes I look back at all of it, the daisies, the ridiculous projects, the lighthouse, and I just laugh. Because in the end, I didn't just get revenge. I got my life back. And you know what? I'm better for it. If you take anything from my story, it's this. Never waste your energy on people who don't see your worth. And if you can get free home renovations out of it on your way out the door, well, that's just a bonus. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Did he do the right thing?